This is a shakedown.
So could you share with us like the environment here and why you enjoy teaching students at IPP?
Yeah, there are many reasons for that, but one of the most important reasons is I enjoy the friendly and professional atmosphere in IPP. Yeah, I don't feel much stressed, although IELTS is really stressful and demanding certificates for students to achieve. But I feel like I am appropriate to this friendly environment. Moreover, because I believe that I have enough ability and skills in order to support students to achieve their goal in IELTS. Therefore, although I have many challenges when teaching IPP and also balancing my work at my college, I still feel that I'm always energetic and motivated when I teach in the class and also in tutorial sessions.
At IPP, you usually host listening and reading lessons, right? And the students are so crazy about Mr. Khôi. So can you tell us like about your 4 or 5 years at IPP? So like how is everything and why you choose to work with us and choose to go with us for such a long time?
Okay, so first of all, I can say that working at IPP IELTS is always my pleasure, okay? I derive immense pleasure and enjoyment from working with you guys. So that's lovely. Now, when it comes to reading and listening IELTS and the tests themselves, most people will think that I will just teach from a book, maybe a Cambridge book and just that.
Okay.
However, in my opinion, for such a very, boring skills, because there's nothing else to work on much, we have to be unorthodox and be a bit flexible in our approach. So normally, teachers will start with some warm-up activities and then they get right into the lessons themselves.
Okay.
But for me, it's more like a bit of push-up and forth, going back and forth.
Feet, this is a shakedown.
So Miss Quyên is very unique as a unique student, as a unique teacher at IPP IELTS, and because she has such a very freestyle teaching methods. So could you tell us about that? So lots of students, they are they are crazy about their style.
Okay, because there's a biggest misconception where a lot of students in IELTS class particularly think that the test is going to be a really formal thing, and from my own viewpoint, it is just supposed to be it's supposed to represent a normal conversation between two people. So I was just I've been trying to turn the class environment into a free place where they can be able to express their own opinions and give their own thinking on a particular topic and stuff like that. And all I want to do is to correct them in terms of language, not the idea.
So he says that students should ask questions as well as communicate with their teacher really as much as they can, right? Okay, so that the teachers would know whether they understand or not. So can you tell me do you think that silence means that the students have already understood everything that you just taught and they just do silence?
From painful experiences, I would say that it is always best to assume that silence means negative things rather than positive. Right? But it's definitely true that silence should never be responded negatively. So when the students are being silent, it means that they need my help more rather than they are giving me a bad attitude, maybe.
That's too much surprise that CAC classes, especially in 5, listening and reading, the classes are always full of students. Just like the list is 15 students and no students stay at home. They all go to the class. So, but the point is that the skill that they study that day is listening and reading, which I believe to be more boring and less interactive compared to writing and speaking. But in my class, some students, I have about 2 or 3 students take the class off that day, but for CAC, his classroom is always full of a student in the list. Can you tell me about how can you do that? How can you engage a student to the point that they all want to join your class without missing a single day?
Okay, there are a lot to unpack here. Let's say, first off, I have to say thank you to all the commitment of all of my students. They have been wonderful to me. Okay, so let's go to the first point. I think I let the students be themselves because I show them my true self. Okay, in the past I used to try to create a model, like someone who is professional, someone who is strict, and someone who is a little bit uptight. Because I thought that was what the students want from the teacher.
What would be your personal definition of such a term?
Quality education.
Quality education.
Wow. Okay, another sophisticated question. Okay. Right, so one thing that comes to my mind now about quality education is to liberate our students.
Liberate,
Yeah, so-
liberal education.
Yeah, exactly. So what I mean by that is, knowledge is freedom. So when you go to a class, that knowledge must enable us to think further, to apply not only in one context but also in multiple contexts. And the teacher must be able to do just that. So that may require him or her to maybe inspire them so that they can bring the knowledge they have assimilated in the classroom to outside the classroom to various contexts.
Okay, so basically it is about knowledge and empower students in order to use that knowledge in different contexts, apply their daily activities, right?
So good, so fresh, just the
I always hear lots of noise from his classrooms, which are usually nearby, and it's really not on me. So could you tell me how can your classes be that noisy and always active?
I don't know if noisy is a good way to describe a classroom, but I think
It's so noisy from my perspective.
it's noisy in a way that it is so active and engaging, and everyone is a part of something that is happening at the time. Yeah, in a way that I try to bring up questions, and I try to create activities that involve my students, physically and mentally. They are not just running around and doing paperwork or trying to find the answers stick on the room, but at the same time they work hard as a group of students, or they try to figure out the answers wholeheartedly. So sometimes they are a bit too involved, and they somehow losing control, and they get a bit loud and noisy, which I know could annoy other classrooms. But I think it's good, and I try to calm them down sometimes. But it's lucky and it's beautiful as a teacher when you see people getting involved in things that you plan out, and it happens your way.
Yeah. So sometimes I see his students, they run out of the classroom in order to touch something that they stuck on the wall.
It happens every day.
So I think that in our modern world, there are so many expectations of us as a teacher, right? So here it's very important that we need to understand the student needs, right? We support them along the way, we motivate them, and sometimes we have to report to their parents as well, and we have to report to center managers about students. So do you think that sometimes it's so stressful, right? So it's just everything is falls on her. Everything falls on her. We have to be responsible for every aspect of a student's education. So do you feel being pressured by such expectations and responsibilities?
At times, yes, but not all the time. I think this is also the beauty of teaching language, because teaching language is actually teaching life. So I try to bring life into the classroom. So try to make it a little bit more casual and to kind of create a good rapport by teach the students how can they use the language in real life. By that I mean, instead of thinking about you as a teacher standing in front and delivering the knowledge, you can think about how you can interact with the students like in real life. And that is also help me to balance too. Because instead of focusing 100% on all of the passion that you have just mentioned, I kind of think about different aspects of life in the classroom, and I also help the student to think about that too.
Show me you got
The language, the content, and an environment for students to share. So what do you consider as like a friend, like that can form Mr. Hoàng friendly at IPP? So what is that?
I think most of the comments I got from student at IPP is that I have a good sense of humor.
Sense of humor.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't really know why. Sometimes I think that I'm a bit lame, but I think the positive attitudes that I brought to the classroom and some of the jokes about life, and then that can make them laugh sometimes. So I think that's the branding that you mentioned about. But I think having a good sense of humor can also really motivate the student to learn, because most students at IPP, they come to the classroom after work or after school, so they feel very tired. So as a teacher, you need to make them happy. You need to make them laugh a little bit so that they can stay engaged in the lesson during the process.